Then we will see Brian Pillman Jr. making his AEW Multiverse debut against Luther. Another down to her opponent. And now on to our next match. We got Brian Pillman Jr. making his debut, and he will be facing off against the ever creepy, ever scary Luther. Brian Pillman Jr. versus Luther here in the ring, and we do see Brian Pillman Jr. getting some good offense in early on in the match, hitting that full Nelson facebuster, hitting that nice little even flow DDT, and here grabbing Luther and hitting a very nice looking vertical stalling suplex. But unfortunately in the end it was the arrogance of Brian Pillman Jr. Look at that very arrogant cover, and it was not enough. Luther able to catch him with that pile driver, drop him right on his head. He focused the attack on the head throughout the match, and Luther able to pick up the pinfall victory over Brian Pillman Jr. So Brian Pillman Jr. unsuccessful in his first ever match here in the AEW Multiverse, and Luther finally picking up his first win after being on a bit of a losing streak. You see there, like I said, Luther focusing his attack on the head, DDTs, pile drivers, and stiff punches throughout the match, biting the forehead at one point, and eventually getting the win. And Luther there posing for the crowd. Oh my gosh, look, it's the former champ Jon Moxley. He's in the ring, and he's got Luther hooked. Paradigm shift. He drops Luther right on his head, and Pillman making a mistake of getting up off his feet. Moxley's got a paradigm shift for him too. Drops him directly on his head. Luther now busted open from that paradigm shift. He gets tossed right out of the ring by Jon Moxley. And look at that. Just another paradigm shift you see on the replays here. Jon Moxley. And he's screaming into the mic. He doesn't have a mic, but he's just screaming into the crowd. He wants a rematch at Brian Cage. Any type of match Brian Cage wants. Fight for the